So today I have a tier list of the most brutal knockouts in UFC history. Throughout the UFC's history, there's been a ton of knockouts, and today we're going to look at the most brutal ones. The ones that kind of make you can. Some people need to look away when they happen, when they see them on screen, because they're that bad. So we have a tier list going from S to D. Didn't include an F tier because you can't really say any of them are F tier because they're all really good. So yeah, we're gonna rank them, see what one's the best, see what one's maybe a bit overhyped in terms of brutality. And yeah, so if before we get into it, please like and subscribe, really helps out. And yeah, so the first one we have is Kainan Salkild, or Sal, I can't really say that, versus Nasrat Haqparast. You know, that this one was last year. I think it was last year. It was infamous. It was memed because of what John Anik had said before. He said the whole, talking about how Nasrat's parents owned a bakery and that he was fat and he couldn't be slim when he was younger because his parents own a bakery. And then John Anik does the whole, he owns a bakery, bang, Salkild just head kicks him, knocks him out cold. And yeah, it was a brutal knockout. However, I'm going to put it in B tier because it was like a good knockout, don't get me wrong, it was a great knockout. But in terms of the brutality, it wasn't, we have more brutal ones because you'll see. So I'm putting that one in B tier. It's a great knockout, but however, I don't think it's the best. Next one, Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor. One of the most infamous KOs in UFC history. Obviously, it was during the rise of McGregor, during his start. And it was capped off, his rise was capped off with winning the featherweight belt over Jose Aldo in a one-punch knockout in 13 seconds of the title fight. And I'm going to put this one at D because obviously the punch, like the punch that Conor McGregor landed on Jose Aldo was like one of the best. It was his first punch. It was the first punch of the fight. But afterwards, Jose Aldo didn't go out cold. You know what I mean? It was like a flash knockout. He fell down. He kind of woke back up, and he was kind of like, where am I? And then Conor McGregor did the follow-up shots, and it kind of lost the knockout some aura. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like he was out cold for a minute or 2 minutes or whatever. He woke back up kind of instantly, and then Conor McGregor just a couple hammer fists, and that was it. It was kind of like some other finishes, a lot of other finishes you see where it's kind of like a TKO almost. It was a knockout, obviously, but I think the follow-up shots, because it wasn't like a straight-up KO, kind of, it knocks it down a peg or two. So I'm actually putting this one in D tier. Next one, Holloway versus Gaethje. Obviously, UFC 300, the triple title fight header, or title fight BMF belt, if you want to count that, and that BMF fight was Holloway versus Gaethje. Gaethje was the holder, was the BMF champ, and Holloway was coming up from featherweight. It was a lightweight, and everyone was thinking that Gaethje was going to smoke Holloway because he's the smaller guy and all that stuff. Like, Holloway's the smaller guy. And then it goes all 5 rounds, you'd think. And then right before the end, literally last 2 seconds, or rather last 10 seconds, Holloway does the whole point down thing. They start swinging in the middle, and then with literally like a second to go, he knocks him out like with an overhand right. And I'm sure everyone watched this. It was like one of the craziest things ever. You're thinking, this is going straight to decision. It was a great fight. The fight itself was actually like really good. It wasn't like one of these boring ones where something happens in the last minute. It was a great fight. Holloway got knocked down for the first time ever. Gaethje was like, got his nose broken with I think it was a spinning back kick from Holloway in like round 2 or 3. And yeah, and it just got capped off. The whole event, kind of UFC 300, the third century event of the UFC, and that happens, and it kind of just capped off the whole event. It kind of just explained the whole thing. So the knockout itself was brutal, obviously. Gaethje just fell instantly, you can see it a tiny bit on the pictures, like he's just laid out flat, and he didn't get up for like 2 minutes afterwards, and it was really, like, when you seen the replays, it was like a brutal knockout because it's just the way he goes down. It's the way he goes down. A lot of these knockouts will be judged on the way the losing fighter kind of, when they get knocked out, goes down, because that's the brutal part of it. The part of it isn't the punch itself or rather just the kick or the punch or the contact itself. It's rather what happens afterwards. That's the brutal part. So Gaethje was pretty brutal. The knockout itself was actually really brutal. So I'm going to put this one at A tier. This one's really good, and it obviously just the time It was at the very end of the fight that made it so much better. If this happened in like round two, it would still be really good. However, it wouldn't be as good because it's a buzzer beater KO. That's what made it amazing. So yeah, and you had like Pereira coming up next as well, so everyone was excited for that, and it just made it 10 times better. So Holloway versus Gaethje, putting that one at A tier. Next, Joaquin Buckley versus Impa Kasanganay, I think that's how you say his surname. This happened during the COVID era. This was on Fight Island, I think, something like, or whatever they called it back then. This was one of the most viral knockouts. I remember when this happened, it blew up all over the internet the day it happened, or rather the day after. Because you probably remember this. I'm sure everyone's seen it, regardless if you're an MMA fan or not. It's when Impa Kasanganay threw a kick. Joaquin Buckley caught it with his hand, and then whilst holding his leg, he like done a tornado, it was like a spinning back kick to Kasanganay's face, and it just knocked him out clean. You can see it when he gets kicked. He kind of like you can see he's knocked out, but he kind of like falls back really slowly until like obviously it gets past the point where he goes really fast, and it was really cool. It was like one of those like saying there's like a ninja thing and all that stuff, and it is actually quite a cool backstory because I remember there was an interview a few years ago. What was it? Joaquin Buckley saying he didn't know because I think he'd just gotten into the UFC. He's maybe like a couple fights into the UFC at this point, and I think he'd lost a couple or maybe once or something like that. And in an interview, he said, if it weren't for this knockout, he would have probably just like retired, because obviously the knockout gave him the notoriety and the popularity, and obviously he would have got a lot of sponsorship options or sponsorship deals, I should say, and from there he could kind of excel his career and look at where he is now. He's like the top 7, I think he's number 7, number 6, something like that, at welterweight. So great for him. It was a great knockout. The brutality of it, because it was really good. Because Impa Kasanganay just kind of stands there. He gets hit and he just kind of falls, and then it falls really slowly. And you can see in his face, it's like he's completely knocked out. And then he hits his head. That's one of the worst things as well. When they're on the way down and they just smack their head off the canvas. And that's what happened to him. And it was like really loud, especially because there was no fans, because it was COVID. So this one I'm gonna put at A. Below the Holloway one, obviously, but I'm gonna put this one at A because it was really good. Usman versus Edwards 2. So this one, obviously, everyone knows this one too. It's when Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman with a head kick with about a minute to go in a fight. He was down, I think it was 3-1 he was down. And, that whole thing in the corner, it was the intermission between round 4 and 5 beforehand. His coach is like, you gotta, I can't remember exactly what he said, but that whole like pep talk thing, saying like, you gotta do it. And then like before the knockout, everyone remembers John Anik being like, that's not the cloth from which he's cut, and then he just 2 seconds later knockout. And obviously it was really surprising as well. Leon Edwards is not getting knockouts. He still doesn't get knockouts. This was the last knockout he got. And then the whole headshot dead thing started, which is one of the worst things ever. He just milked that for so many fights and never got a headshot or a knockout again. So, yeah. However, the brutality of this one is really, like, it's the way Usman goes down. Usman just kind of, like, gets head kicked and then just folds like a lawn chair. And he is out for, like, a couple minutes, but, like, when he gets knocked out, you can kind of see he wakes up, kinda, but he obviously doesn't know where he is because he's talking to the referee after, like, 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. So I'm gonna say this one is high. I'm gonna say it's high B tier. I don't think it's as good as this one, just because of the way it, like, Usman falls isn't as good as the way Kasanganay falls, as bad as that sounds. But I'm gonna put this one high B tier. Next one, Ngannou versus Overeem. This one was bad. So, as you all know, this was during the come up of Ngannou in 2017, I believe this fight was. And Ngannou was this absolute monster, the whole Ford Escort thing, or the Ford Escort thing was after this, because after this fight, he got the fight with Miocic, the first fight. And in this fight, Ngannou just uppercuts Overeem and sends him flying, knocked out cold, onto the ground. And does he follow up with a hammer fist? I believe he does follow up with a hammer fist in this fight as well. And it's the way he knocks him out. You can literally see like over him. You can see it kind of in the photo if you're able to see. But it's like, I'm sure you could just Google it as well. But he genuinely like sends him off his feet, and it just like it's like a superhero just uppercut into Overeem's jaw, and it just sends him down. And then the hammer fist afterwards was made it even worse. So this one was pretty good. However, I'm gonna put it high B tier. This is the best of B tier. I don't think it's on par with the other ones. However, it is Ngannou, and Ngannou is just like a knockout machine, so it is still a really good knockout. The brutality is good, so I'm gonna put it there. Next, Henderson versus Bisping 1. So UFC 100 hit Michael Bisping versus Dan Henderson. There was like a bad blood going into this fight. I believe it was something to do with, was it tough? I can't remember if it was something to do with the Ultimate Fighter. I genuinely can't remember. And so in this fight, or the knockout rather, Henderson, or you can even hear in commentary, the commentators are kind of like, something's going to happen here. Dan Henderson hits Bisping with like this big overhand, and then that knocks out Bisping. So he's on his way down, and then when he hits the floor, Henderson like does this mad Superman thing where he jumps up in the air and just follows up with like the heaviest like follow up shot you'll ever see, and it's like this one's pretty bad because he's out, and then it's not even if he went down, like it's not as if Henderson just followed him down and then just gave him a couple shots. He generally jumps in the air as if Bisping is like his guard is stopping him when nothing's there to stop Henderson from going straight to his head. He jumps over and just completely just lands this nuclear bomb on Bisping's head, and it's like that one's bad. I'm actually gonna put this one's going in A tier above the Buckley knockout because it's the way, and then you see the camera zoom into Bisping afterwards, and it's really bad. So this one you have to kind of look away. I've known people to see this before, and it's like they have to kind of like, ooh, that's kind of bad. So I'm putting this one at high A tier, just underneath the Holloway knockout. Next, we have Bryce Mitchell versus Josh Emmett. This one was bad. This one was like, I remember watching this live, and you genuinely thought Bryce Mitchell was dead. Like, when Josh Emmett landed that shot on Bryce Mitchell, it was like, I actually genuinely thought he'd killed him. And I'm sure a lot of other people did. I'm sure the commentary did. I'm sure like everyone watching did. Because of the seizures. Remember Bryce Mitchell started having seizures after the knockout. It was that bad. And this was actually like, what a lot of people seem to forget is this was a short notice fight for Bryce Mitchell. I think it was 2 weeks. I can't remember who Josh Emmett was supposed to fight. He was supposed to fight someone else. And they pulled out. I can't remember who it was. And they called up Bryce Mitchell, being like, fight Josh Emmett. Bryce Mitchell says, yeah. What's going on with this? Okay, there we go. So Bryce Mitchell says, yeah, fight happens, and then that happens. And it was like, wasn't it like, I think it was 30 seconds into the fight. Like, it was really quickly into the fight. And I was just scared for Bryce Mitchell, because it's the way he goes that he just slumps down, and thankfully there was no follow-up shots. However, the fact there was no follow-up shots made the actual punch just completely ridiculous, the power that Josh Emmett has. And to sleep Bryce Mitchell like that is kind of mad. And then obviously what makes the knockout brutal is the aftermath, is him having the seizures and him like just being dead on the floor with his eyes open. And it was because he was there for like 4 minutes. I just remember the commentary being like, I think he's actually like dead. Or they didn't say that, but like that's kind of what they were insinuating. And in terms of brutality, it's close to the Gaethje one. I'm going to say it's above the Gaethje one. So this one's going A tier, above Gaethje. And yeah, it's going above Gaethje. This is probably one of the most brutal ones you'll ever see. Next is Adesanya versus Pereira 2. So Adesanya Pereira 2, the rematch after Pereira knocked out Adesanya, or TKO'd Adesanya the first time in round 5. This was the rematch. It was into round 2, I believe. I think it was in the second round. Second round, Pereira was kind of doing well. He kind of started headhunting Adesanya, and then Adesanya just caught him with this big overhand right, which stumbled Pereira backwards. He kind of like, it was almost like a flash, like he got rocked quite bad. And then when Pereira was trying to like regain himself, Adesanya just follows up with, I believe it was like a left hook and a right hand on the temple, just flattened Pereira. And this one was kind of, it was weird. This one was weird. I wouldn't say it was crazy brutal, because it kind of just looked like another knockout. Like Pereira was obviously out cold, and he was out cold for like a minute or two. But it was weird because it just looked weird seeing Pereira get knocked out like that. I just remember having this weird memory of it, because it was like Pereira, you know, the whole thing around Pereira is that he's like this monster and all that stuff. And then when you see him get knocked out like that, it was just weird. It wasn't even brutal. He didn't have a brutal feeling. It was just crazy weird. Like, it was an unusual sight. I don't know how you put it, but it's something like that. So I'm gonna put this one. Where am I gonna put this one? I'm gonna put this one below the Usman one. It was a brutal knockout, because it was Pereira getting knocked out, and Adesanya, obviously the Gaino Sanya, as people like to say when he gets knockouts. So I'm gonna put it in B tier, just below the Usman KO. Next is, what is this? Oh, Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blades. This one was weird. Because obviously in this fight, it was Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades, and Curtis Blades was just dominating that fight. It was in the first round, I believe. I think the fight was in the first round. It was Curtis Blades, it was like shooting for takedowns, but he wasn't getting them. And it was just Derek Lewis being Derek Lewis. He was just being slow. And Curtis Blades kept shooting for takedowns. And then I think it was maybe midway through the first round, Derek Lewis, or rather, Curtis Blades was going in for a takedown. And Derek Lewis, instead of like defending it, he just shot this big uppercut. Right. Pardon me. I don't know what that was. I'm ill right now. So, as I was saying, Derek Lewis shot this massive uppercut, connected right on the chin of Curtis Blades as he was going for a takedown, and just absolutely just seized him up. Like, he just froze in the position he was going for the takedown, and it's like he just falls over as Derek Lewis is like pushing him, and Derek Lewis generally follows up with I think the most brutal ground and pound like follow up shots I've like anyone's ever seen. It's because he connects like two or three times, and you can hear his head just connecting off the canvas in the replay. In terms of brutality, this one's bad. This one's going, is it better than the Hendo one? I'd say it's better than the Holloway one. Actually, I'm going to put it above the Holloway one. This one was really bad. This one was bad. So I'm putting this one above the Holloway one because of the follow-up shots. The follow-up shots make this one brutal. Because the knockout itself is bad, but it is the follow-up shots, and it's Derek Lewis. Like, imagine getting follow-up shots on a stationary target by Derek Lewis. Like, it's just nightmare come true. So yeah. Next one, Bobby Green versus Mauricio Huffy. This was last year. Bobby Green got spinning wheel kicked by Huffy and knocked out cold. This one was bad, but I'm thinking it was more like the knockout in terms of what I'm not putting it in C, I'm just leaving it here because my fingers needs a rest. Basically the knockout itself, I wouldn't say it was terribly brutal. It was obviously a good knockout, but it was more like just because it was a wheel kick, because it was really cool. It was more cool than brutal because it was a wheel kick and it was Huffy and he's like really athletic and he does all these things in the octagon. Like, remember he did the scissor takedown against the Australian guy, I can't remember his name. Or the scissor sweep or whatever. And so this knockout was more kind of just a cool knockout rather than a brutal knockout. So I'm actually going to put it at C tier. Obviously, Bobby Green did go unconscious. He was on the floor for a minute. However, it's Bobby Green. He's kind of been there before. It's like Bobby Green gets knocked out now. It's whatever. So yeah. Next one, Pico versus Murphy. Murphy welcomed Aaron Pico to the UFC by spinning elbowing him in round 1, or was it round 2? I think it was round 1. Yeah, it was round one. Adam Peele comes out really aggressive, like taking the fight to Murphy, and just like gets up all up in his face. I believe he gets a takedown. They get back up, and then as as Adam Peele comes in, Laurel Murphy just like catches him with a spinning elbow, and he gets like a was this was this rated the best knockout of 2025? I don't think it was. Maybe it was. I can't remember, but it was a good knockout. It was quite brutal because the way Aaron Pico goes down. I'm gonna say it is better than. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's better than the Salkild knockout. It was definitely a brutal knockout just because of the elbow and because it was Aaron Pico's debut and it was like all this hype, and then Laurel Murphy does that, and it's the way he goes down, and in the after the finish, you can see like Aaron Pico's eyes just like completely open on the camera zooming in. He's like completely out. He doesn't know what he is. He's just unconscious. He's not even moving. Everyone has to run in and get, or the doctors have to run in and get everything. So everything sorted. So yeah, I'm putting that one in B tier. Next one, Etam versus Barboza. So this one is really old, from 2012, I believe. Terry Etam versus Edson Barboza. Everyone's probably seen this one. This is one of them. Another of the more famous knockouts in UFC history. It's when Edson Barboza spinning wheel kick Terry Etam. I think it was this like one of the first wheel kick KOs in the UFC. It was one of them, and or if not close to it. And they're just kind of in the fight, and then just Barboza just does a wheel kick and just lands it right in his head, and it's kind of similar to the Buckley KO where like Kasanganay kind of like was here, and then and when he got hit, he just kind of slowly fell back. That's kind of the same thing that happened to Terry Etam when he got wheel kicked. And but it's even worse because he was like stiff. Like you'll see in the knockout, he's like proper, like his arms are doing that fencing position where he's like crazy stiff. So you know it's a good knockout, and it was kind of brutal because one of the, and talking about the kind of after the finishes, it's like the UFC does a really good job, whoever the cameramen are, on zooming in on the knocked out fighter just to like further just like capture the knockout, and that's what happened to this one. It's like after the knockout, it zoomed in on Terry Etam and he's just completely stiff, knocked out. So this one was quite bad just because of that follow up shot. Or not follow up shot, but the follow up camera angle. So I'm gonna put this one. Where did I put this one? A tier. Yeah, I'll put it above A tier. I'll put it in A tier above the Buckley KO. Next one is Topuria versus. Wow, I've just forgotten his name. This guy. What was his name again? I can't remember his name. This guy, the guy from the English guy. So he fought in this fight. Topuria was, remember the head kick. Topuria got head kicked and knocked down, and he came back and done this absolute wild KO, and it was like a ragdoll KO, and it was a ragdoll KO, and he got, why my camera? There we go. So it was a ragdoll KO, and it was like the sequence as well. The sequence is really good. And when he connected that right hand, he just like fell down. The other guy fell down. I still don't remember his name. Fell down and just like completely went unconscious. We went completely limp. It was a good knockout. It's kind of like this one. It's kind of like the Huffy KO, where it's like it was more like a cool knockout rather than a brutal knockout. However, you do see the name's gonna come to me. I still can't get it. He has like a weird name that I can't remember. So, excuse me. Yeah, Topuria landed this knockout. You can see in the aftermath, it was like they zoomed in and he was like completely out, and it was kind of brutal. I wouldn't say it was like crazy brutal. However, it was more like a cool KO. So I'm gonna put it at top of C tier. I don't think it was like that brutal. It was obviously bad, but I just think it was more cool than brutal. So yeah. Next is Prohaska versus Reyes. This one was pretty bad. So if you remember, this was during the initial rise of Yuri, when I think this was like his second UFC fight or something like that. Yeah, this was his second UFC fight, and he was in the main event against Dominic Reyes. He was like piecing Reyes up, and then just on the fence, Yuri is like hunting him down, and he misses a right hand, and then just instead of like returning his hand back, he uses momentum to spin his whole body into an elbow, a spinning elbow, and just knocks out Reyes cold. And it's the way Reyes goes down, and it's like he's all bloody, and he just goes down flat on his face, and it is just like one of the most kind of brutal knockouts you will see. And I think there was like an X-ray, and he like broke Reyes's skull or something like that. Broke something because of the elbow, and it was really bad. I remember like watching it, and you could see like the commentary reaction, and it just kind of makes the whole thing. However, I wouldn't say it's the most brutal. It is Reyes, obviously, had been knocked out before, so I'm gonna put this one. I'm gonna put this one in B tier, just above the Lerone Murphy KO. And finally, we are at the last one. Obviously, there's not too many in this video, because if I was to put all the KOs, all the best KOs, or all the most brutal KOs, we'd be here for hours, and I really don't want to do that right now. So maybe I'll make it a part 2. But the final, last but not least, is Masvidal versus Askren. Everyone knows this knockout. I'm sure everyone who isn't an MMA fan has seen this knockout. It was like global, viral, whatever you want to call it. This is S tier. This is the best knockout in UFC history, or the most brutal knockout anyway in UFC history, because of it was 5 seconds. There's this bad blood between Masvidal and Askren. So they're like charged up against each other. Askren, this was his second fight in the UFC. He's like the guy who's undefeated, gets a shot in the UFC to prove that he's the best. And after Masvidal fought Till, we kind of put them in place to fight each other. And yeah, so they were having this bad blood, this beef, all the way up to the fight. And the cage door locks, the referee times them in, and Masvidal just runs across the octagon and flying knees Ben Askren in the face, while Ben Askren reacting to him running across the octagon, he shoots for a takedown, because that's his whole thing. He's a wrestler. He's not very good at striking, or he was not very good at striking. So he shot for a takedown in defense, maybe out of panic. I believe that would probably be what happened. And it just lined up perfectly. Masvidal's knee just hit Ben Askren's head, and he just knocked him out cold, and it was like really brutal. But just how fast that happened, and because of the hype around the fight and how quickly it just went like that, like snap of a finger, and it was that quick. Because on paper the knockout is 5 seconds, but in reality the knockout was like 2 seconds, because obviously they have to like. When the knockout happens, the referee has to realise the knockout's happened, run in and get Masvidal off of him. And that took 5 seconds, but the knockout itself took like 2 seconds. And obviously after the knockout, or rather, I'll say this first, when the knockout happened, you just kind of see Askren's body just kind of fall to the side, and then Masvidal just follows up. Or rather, he like flies over the top of Askren, looks behind him, realises he's knocked him out, and just like crawls over or runs over, I can't exactly remember, and just starts like 2 punches, just absolutely just like hammering Askren in the face while he's out cold, like properly out cold, like stiff. And that's where the whole like super necessary, because one of the like an interviewer or a media person said like, were those follow-up shots necessary? And Masvidal obviously says, yeah, they were super necessary. So that's where that came from. If you've ever heard of that before, I'm sure you have. So that's where that came from. That knockout was probably one of the most brutal. I remember watching that when that happened live, and my jaw was just on the floor. It was because I was hyped up for that fight. I was a big Ben Askren fan, and when that happened, it just like crushed me. It was like, what just happened? It was like almost disbelief, because it was that good. It was that brutal as well. So yeah, it was just that's the most brutal knockout in UFC history. Masvidal's knee into Ben Askren's head. So yeah, that's the tier list. That's the video. So if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Really helps out. If you disagreed with any of my takes or any of my rankings, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you later. Bye.